Hello, everyone. This is Sharice Lindsay, Capital Coach and Leadership Training Facilitator at Life Seeds Development Group, where we are cultivating greatness one seed at a time. In honor of National Career Development Week, I have with me today Kaylin Staten, APR. We are interviewing this week a few local purposeful women who embody the meaning of personal leadership. And today, we're going to go through interview number 2 in the series of 5, which spanned the whole week of Career Development Week. And so, Ms. Kaylin Staten, we'll go ahead and get started. And I'm going to read your bio, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions so that you can contribute to the work that we're doing to try to help women in our local area who may be wondering what they can do to better their careers and get started or move up to another level. So Kaylin Staten, APR, is an award-winning accredited public relations practitioner and writer who is based here in Huntington, West Virginia. She has 18 years of professional communications experience. And as CEO and founder of Hourglass Media, she uses her compassionate spirit and expertise to delve into the heart of clients' stories. She is a recovering perfectionist. We have something in common.
Yes.
Mental health advocate, wife, Luke's mom, which is usually the greatest thing on earth.
Yes.
Cat mom, and she is a Princess Leia Organa aficionado. So that is a little bit about Kaylin Staten. So how are you, Kaylin?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be, with such a great group of women. And
thank you.
I think that it's awesome what you're doing and showcasing, career development and, how people can better themselves and, get to that level that they want to achieve.
Yes.
As a perfectionist, like you and I both know that sometimes we achieve too much. We want to achieve too much. So when I say recovering, we all have relapses, unfortunately. So
yes.
Yes.
So I'll go ahead and get started with my first question. And that question is, what is your personal definition of career development, or what does it really mean to you? What does that phrase mean to you?
As somebody who has been a high achiever pretty much my entire life, I've always placed an emphasis on career development. And so for me, that means learning something new every day, whether it's personally or professionally. And a lot of times we, obviously blend the two together.
Right.
But it's really, sitting down and coming up with a plan of goals and objectives and, doing everything that you can in your power to get to those stepping stones so you can reach those goals and objectives. Because for me, as somebody who is a perfectionist and, a self-professed control freak, that's something I work on every day, obviously, but I want to evolve and to be the best version of myself that I can be. And a lot of times that has come from career development, because I actually, when I say that I have 18 years of experience, I actually started in communications in high school when I was 14 years old. And so from a very early age, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. And that's just evolved into being a PR practitioner, owning my own company. And it's evolved obviously over time. But I think that just being able to utilize that and, start your career, something you're passionate about early, that has played into my definition of career development as well.
That's awesome. Great. That's a great definition. And it's personalized, which is best. So
I didn't want to get on Google and say, this is what career development is. We're all needed to do that, especially if we're
and that's what we want. And that really is what I mean by personal leadership. It's like you've taken that in as your own and you have, weaved it into what it is, who you are in total. So great definition.
Thank you.
So what would you say are some misconceptions that women have today about developing their careers. And I don't know if you want to go with that as an overall, or, actually adjust that to where we are today, um, like a right now kind of thing. So what would you say that those misconceptions are?
I think for a lot of women, it is 2020, and we are on a really great path to empowering women to better their situations and to combat stigmas and misconceptions. But I think that I'm just speaking from personal experience. I'm a new mom, and so
Yes.
my son is 10 weeks old. And so it's been a kind of a weird dilemma for me because I'm 32 years old, so I waited a little bit to have a child, but it's weird to start your career and then kind of have to pivot. And a lot of times as women,
Yeah.
we are told that you have to have one linear path. Like you can either be this career woman and this like version who just has this career and that's it, or you can just be a mom. But I think that the misconception is that you can't do both. And so I
Right.
hope to embody that and do both of them well. I know that there are going to be some seasons that one takes priority over the other and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, but um I think that a lot of times just I don't know if a lot of times it's regional. A lot of times, there are these deeply embedded
True.
stigmas that we attach ourselves to. And anybody who has any type of mental health disorder, I have anxiety and depression, and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
plays into my perfectionism. And it's a good and bad thing because you obviously achieve things, but then you're your own worst enemy.
True.
So I think a lot of times we tell ourselves these narratives that aren't necessarily true for our own paths, and that's one of the major misconceptions that I've been kind of dealing with right now, just because it's timely for me in my life. And I know that a lot of women locally and regionally, nationally, internationally, have been struggling with this for decades. So it's just how do you balance, both of those things, and
Right.
can you have both of those? And I definitely want to pursue both of those.
Yes, because it is possible to do
Yes.
both and doing them well.
Yes.
So we'll just throw that out there.
Yes.
So my next question is, what has been your greatest accomplishment in terms of your career? What did that teach you, that you could share with others?
Like I said, I've always been very focused on achieving things, and a lot of times I've noticed in the past, a lot of times I would just achieve things for the sake of achieving things because it's like this endorphin rush. And so
Right.
I had to really think about this question, because I do have a few that I'm proud of, and I really want to share my story. And hopefully, if there is a woman out there locally who really wants to do any of these things, just to show her that it's possible.
Right.
Um, I have APR at the end of my name, and I remember sitting in class at Marshall University. I was in my very first public relations class, and we were going over the accreditation in public relations. So I didn't even have my degree yet, and I was like, I want this certification, right? So it took me. You have to, be in the PR career for 10 years, and then you can apply and get accepted, and then you have to go through this process of doing a panel presentation, doing an
Mhm.
examination, and then you are certified, and then you just have to pay and like basically like reinstate it, every
Mhm.
3 years or so. And so it gives me a lot more credibility as a PR practitioner. And so I encourage anybody who has a career or, wants to be either in PR or whatever type of career you find yourself in, just to pursue those extra certifications, because it does give you that extra level of expertise. And
That's
for
true.
some people, it could actually, it can mean more money. It can mean it gives you more confidence to ask for a raise, or
Yes.
to, go to a boardroom and say, I'm really confident in the plan I'm presenting you. And so it's given me that extra boost of confidence that
Yes.
I needed. Just to segue, another thing that I'm proud of, and I've thought of, I've been thinking of this like my entire life basically, is owning my own company.
Yeah.
And I have had Hourglass Media for 5 years. And so I feel like we're getting ready to, scale to the next level. So I'm really excited about that. But I watched my dad as a little girl. My dad was a contractor and he owned his own company and he was his own boss. And of course, that's its own blessing and curse sometimes.
True.
For anybody who's an entrepreneur has that, that bug, that spirit inside of them. And so that was just one of the things I wanted to achieve. And, I'm very blessed to have an amazing support system. And I couldn't do what I do without my husband, because obviously he supported me from day one with, since we met with my company. And so
that's awesome.
For me, the term self-made, this is just like a side thing. I feel like self-made isn't really an accurate description, because all of us have to have at least one person, a mentor or a spouse or a best friend or, whomever, to help us reach that level. And so he's been my person for that. So I've been very, very thankful for that.
That's great.
So those are my two. But then as a writer, I've always wanted to publish my own works, and a lot of times we get in our own head about that, and we're like, "Well, it's not good enough. I don't want to put it out there and have it be criticized." And all of that.
Exactly. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, we are our own worst enemies when it comes to that. And so I released my first book in 2016, and it was a relatively easy subject matter. My great-grandmother passed away earlier that year. And so I put together a compilation of her recipes and stories about her and photos, and just kind of did this heirloom cookbook. And so it was a very natural process for me to be able to release that as my first book. And so that gave me the confidence to pursue other things. And so just being able to tell her story and keep her legacy alive has been one of the personal and professional things that have really that I'm proud of, and then I'm proud to tell my son about her, and then the community at large. I've had people even from like Washington State find the book, and
oh wow,
yeah, it's been so just to share like Appalachian stories,
right?
From one of the women who helped create who I am. So
yes, and I can definitely follow that, because that is that was my role model, was my grandmother. So yes, definitely. I know exactly where you're coming from with that. And also when you say that was a place, something you could start out with, just kind of building confidence, I guess you'd say, something that you're comfortable with, something that like the back of your hand kind of thing. I think that a lot of times if we start that way, it'll make a big difference. It really does give us a good confidence boost, and it may even spark creativity for things that we didn't think we could do. It just kind of leads to that, and I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, fear a lot of times gets in our way, and so anytime you can take even those baby steps to combat fear,
yes,
you're making progress. Like you may not see it overnight, and so that's something that as somebody who's impatient and a perfectionist and things like that, we want things to happen instantly. We want that instant gratification, especially now in the society we live in, with social media being on our fingers all the time, and, have our phones that are an extension of ourselves. So I think that, just kind of stepping back and realizing that you did enough for one day, and then you can start again and, add to that tomorrow and layer upon, the habits and goals that you want to achieve.
Totally agree. So my next question is regarding strengths and leveraging your strengths. So how do you leverage your strengths to be more effective in your career, in your business, maybe even in your in home life, in your personal life? How do you leverage your strengths?
Yeah, a lot of times we focus a lot on the negative aspects of life, and so it's really good. This was a good question because it got me thinking about positive things, especially in 2020. I think we all need some more positivity.
Right.
My company is focused on public relations, writing, and then educational opportunities within those two realms. And so, like I said before, I started my career at a very young age, and even as a toddler, I would write different, I would write stories, but it'd be scribbles and like little like drawings and things like that. But I always had this storytelling element.
Yes.
And so for me, that's one of my strengths. And so when I decided to branch off and do my own company, I wanted to keep that storytelling aspect, but blend it into something that I wouldn't get tired of, or because a lot of times with our careers, we get in a rut. And I was kind of feeling that professionally. And I come from a nonprofit background. So, I was a director of marketing at of the River Cities. And so it's kind of, obviously I'm very passionate about the community, but I was thinking just in my head, like, I know that there has to be something more. There's something more that I want to do. I didn't want it to be just, this one size fits all path. And so, having that line of thinking and, problem solving and critical thinking and all of that, that's also a strength because it helped me create a company that I felt like was needed, especially, in our area, and just telling the human elements of stories, whether it's, a nonprofit client or a small business or just my own story. I think that using those kind of hard skills like writing, communicating, all the things that go with that, but then also I'm a very empathetic person. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and sometimes that is to my detriment, because it's like I take sometimes if I'm depending on the mood of the room and the mood of me, like all of that, I'm a sponge, and so I kind of take on, like just the emotions of people within a room.
Right.
So if it's very high energy, then I'm going to be like that. If it's very, depressing and Debbie Downer, like, then I'm going to be like, oh, life sucks, all this stuff. Like, and so I think that when you look at it in terms of, wear my heart on my sleeve and things like that, but I can also use empathy to lead. And I think that, we're in this very pivotal time in our society, with things that have occurred in 2020. I feel like a lot of us have kind of seen the light with empathy, and some people still, have a long way to go with regards to that. But I think that using empathy, no matter what type of career you find yourself in, will work to your advantage because you'll be able to see the other side.
Yes.
You'll be able to, use your experiences without making it about yourself, but you'll be able to, really identify with people and kind of get out of your own tunnel vision, because a lot of times we get stuck in that, especially if you have anxiety or depression. It's a very, like you're always kind of in your own head. And so you're obsessed with, everything about yourself and how you feel. And so it's very
stuck in a space of,
it's humbling to be able to, listen to other people's stories. And that's one of the things I like about my job is, it may not be my story. I may not have that path. But I like to learn about other people's journeys and, apply things to my own life, or, definitely be more of an active listener instead of just passively listening.
Yes. That is really important. I had some hard lessons during my first experience in leadership. And active listening is crucially important to any kind of leadership, but it's so important to always be looking for the best in someone else, because ultimately when we work together, of course, we're going to go a whole lot farther than if we were to stay in our silos and only see our own perspective. So appreciate that answer.
Yeah, I love collaboration. Like, even though I'm a solopreneur, and obviously I want to scale my company and have more employees and subcontractors, and that's the goal for 2021. But I like to collaborate because I don't like to stay in my own bubble, because it gets kind of lonely.
It does. And that's the other thing about trying to go out on your own into the entrepreneurial space. You get out there and you're excited, and then it's like, oh, there's nobody here. It's quiet. It's just me trying to do all of, go through this laundry list here. But, Yes, collaboration is very important. But not even for just entrepreneurial, focus. It's for, anything, corporate life, or, it's good to have other people around you who are going in the same direction or have the same kind of goals that you have. Ultimately,
Absolutely.
that will help us get to where we want to go. Great answer. So my next question is, what is it in your current position that actually brings you the most joy? I know you love what you're doing, but is there
Yeah.
a specific element of that?
Well, I like being my own boss. I think a lot of people kind of would love to have that role of being your own boss. Of course, again, you are kind of chained to your own to-do lists and things like that. So kind of have to keep yourself in check. And sometimes there's not always, that extra
Sure.
checks and balances.
True.
Um, but I like being my own boss and being able to call the main shots of my company. Of course, my clients call the shots at the end of the day. So if something's not working, then, just having
Right.
a conversation, or something is working, then, continue to do that and just build upon that. Um, and I love to write. And so that's something a lot of times we get really, even if we love something, we get really tired of it. But I
Hmm.
write every single day, whether it's like in my journal or if it's just kind of doing bullet points and things like that. Having a 10-week-old sometimes is a little challenging. So I've been
Yeah,
doing like
sure.
voice notes as I'm feeding him. And so just being able to pivot and just you'd be like, I can't sit here and like handwrite in a journal like I would like to, or type it out. But
Right.
just being able to continue what you love to do, but you may have to pivot with your strategy a little bit. So the flexibility is vital, especially,
Yeah.
like as you get really busy with something, or your life changes in a major way. And so I definitely enjoy being able to have that flexibility with being, I can work when I need to work, and then
Hmm.
step away and do the mom and wife thing when I need to.
Right.
And so I think that that's one of the best things about owning your own company, being your own boss, is that you have the capability to do that. Because before, obviously, when you work with somebody else or for somebody else, you don't
Hmm.
always have that.
Very true.
But when you build your career with enough years behind you, I think that it's just one of the benefits is having the expertise and having all of that comes with your career development. But the personal benefits are great as well.
I agree. Yeah, flexibility is great. It seems to be running everything right now.
Yeah.
And hopefully, more people not only want to go out and do their own thing, in some ways, but the most important part, that I see, is that people actually do what they were born to do, that they're using their talents to, that, and it brings them joy in return. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, flexibility is great.
Yeah.
So, reflecting on your career, or your leadership experiences, in different capacities, what advice would you give to a woman who's currently watching this interview, thinking that she wants to advance her career in some way? What advice would you give to her?
I would say a major component of this is to not let fear stop you, because a lot of times we tell ourselves all of these negative stories, or we believe something that somebody has told us that we can't do, or something that we can do but we're not really necessarily passionate about it. So I would say lead from a place of following your heart and your mind at the same time. Just make sure that one doesn't weigh out over the other. And,
Hmm.
just I'm a big advocate of doing like pro and cons lists. So when you find yourself in a situation, just weigh the options, but then also go with what your gut tells you. Because for me, my intuition doesn't really steer me incorrectly most of the time.
Hmm.
And so I feel like it's a very vital component of seeking what you are meant to do with your life. So I feel like life is too short to be unhappy, especially with something
Yes.
with your career or something in your personal life. And we owe it to ourselves to take that more positive journey. And I've noticed, and I know that you can attest to this, that when you're an entrepreneur, it's the hardest thing probably ever. But anything worth having is going to be hard.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
being a parent is hard. Being a CEO of a company is hard.
Yes.
Even if you're a solopreneur, and I think that, writing the great American novel is hard. Like nothing worth having is easy.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times we don't go into situations and show confidence. We kind of adhere to what the standards have been, set for us.
Yes.
And I think, either it's, what's always been done in our families, and especially in this area, I feel like there still are a lot of societal norms that need to be broken in terms
Right.
of all kinds of different stories and, deeply rooted issues that we've had. And, being from Appalachia and knowing this area like the back of my hand, I can definitely speak to that. And you mentioned in my bio that I love Leia Organa. I love Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars geek. And so with that comes a love for Carrie Fisher, who played Princess Leia. And she was obviously a very profound writer as well. And so she's an inspiration to me, not only for mental health, but for writing and, obviously as her, my favorite character of all time. And so she has a quote that I use pretty much as a mantra, when I definitely need to have it. And she said that what's important is the action. You don't have to wait to be confident. Just do it, and eventually the confidence will follow. And a lot of times haven't felt the most confident, but it's kind of like the fake it till you make it mentality.
Yes. Right.
Just kind of, I hate that cliche, but if you project confidence, even if you don't feel your most confident, then I feel like you'll be able to, make leaps and bounds within your career. And so my main thing is, try your best to be confident and don't let fear stop you from what you know in your heart and your mind that you were born to do. I know a lot of us don't know what that is. And so that's a lot of pressure sometimes for people, like when you're going to college and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah. Well, that was me. I can totally understand that. It wasn't until I had a really, really hard year, just in every way, personal, professional, everything just kind of went crazy. And it was like, I need to reevaluate some things. Where am I going with this? What do I, and one question that always kept coming up was, and even when I started, Life Seeds Development Group, it was like, what do you want? And it was something that it's the craziest thing. It's like I never actually asked myself what I want, not what someone else wants me to do. What do I want for myself? And I think a lot of times, we as women, and like you said, especially like in this area, we just have this want to do for everyone else, and we never really look inside ourselves and say, start to investigate, who really am I and what should I be doing that will make me happy and bring me satisfaction. So it's crucially important that we all do that.
Yeah, and I think as women, we're like natural caregivers for the most part anyway. And so,
right.
I mean, that's really good if when you're a company, you can, make your clients happy and, make sure that everything is going out how it should go. But definitely not being too much of a caregiver to where you interject yourselves in situations that really deplete you.
Right.
I think that a lot of times, I mean, I can speak to definitely my own experiences is when you put too much of yourself into something that isn't really paying back dividends for you, then you can't really pursue what you want to pursue in life. And you can't ask those questions because it comes down simply to like, what do I see for myself? Like, what do I want?
Right.
What's something that I do every single day that brings me joy and how can I, put that in my career?
Exactly.
A lot of times we look at, personal and professional as two different buckets instead of seeing how you can
Right.
blend the two. And I mean, I've
Yeah.
definitely been guilty of doing that. And so I think that, as you start to craft what you want your career to look like, whether it's, working for a company that you've always dreamed of working for, or, becoming, your own boss, or, doing whatever you want to do and what you want to pursue, then I feel like when you ask yourselves those questions, I think it becomes a little bit easier. Just really sitting down and like having those honest conversations with yourself,
Exactly.
which is hard.
Exactly. And it's not easy. It's not.
Yeah.
But when you see yourself in that, or, come out of that, it's a better feeling than anything else. So,
Yeah, definitely.
well, my next question is, who's had the most influence on your career development? Was it someone, in your family, or was it a mentor, or is there any one person in particular?
Well, I've had the blessing of having a lot of people influence my life, but when I really think back at when I started my career, and before I started my career, I had an English teacher in 7th and 8th grades. I went to Beverly Hills Middle School back when it was still a middle school.
Yeah.
So I'm a Black Hawk, and I had an amazing English teacher. Her name was Theo Tippett, and I was obviously, this was a very formative time in a young person's life. And so
Yes.
she actually gave me confidence in my writing. She would encourage me to share it in front of the class. She would, give me like constructive criticism and feedback. And I
Right.
learned to, not necessarily take it as such a bad thing to get constructive criticism. It's only, obviously meant to make you better. And so she was kind of my first guiding light in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. And so when I entered high school, like I obviously pursued journalism, and that turned into PR a little bit later in college. But just being able to have a teacher who is that much of a mentor, and unfortunately she's no longer with us, and but hopefully I'm able to. She always told me that I would get a Pulitzer Prize for writing, and that's a little daunting.
Oh my.
I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I could do that, but
You never
hopefully,
know. You
even
never
if I
know.
don't do that, like I would have made her proud, because what she thought of me meant a lot to me.
Right.
So I think that just thinking back to even those teachers who had an influence on you, or a coworker, or somebody in your family. I find inspiration in a lot of different ways as a sponge, like I said. So I think that I've been inspired with lots of different things, but she definitely was kind of that initial person to tell me that I had a talent for writing, and then encourage me to pursue some type of career with it.
It's almost like I always think when someone does that, no matter who it is, a teacher or a family friend or whoever, it's almost like she's going to know, because that's her field. So she's going to be able to recognize that talent that you had. And a lot of times, teachers or whoever may see that and for some reason not say anything. But it's really important that if you see it, that you say something, because you never know what that seed that you plant may, what that may turn out to be in later years for students. And I've heard that with, basketball players, or, writers, all different fields, but that person knows, they can see something in that, and it's important to recognize that talent. And I'm sure as you see someone come through through your agency, through your PR firm, that you would be able to recognize when there's someone that is spot on, or you see a talent in them, and I'm sure you would say something.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. So what should we be doing today, as female leaders, as women who have personal leadership qualities, and have a will to do the best we can, and not only to do the best we can, but to help other women to do the same. What would you suggest that we could do at this point in time to help those women?
I think it kind of segues into what you just said, as just being able to have that conversation and tell a fellow girl or woman when they have a talent, and just not be silent. I think that, and I dealt with this in the very beginning of my career, women can be competitive, especially in a very competitive work environment, or if you find yourself in a toxic work environment, and it's kind of like every man and woman for themselves. And so I think that just recognizing that not everything has to be a competition. It makes us be better to have, healthy competition, but it's very vital that we cultivate the next generation. And so
Yes.
there have been a lot of situations in which, as a young woman, just coming up in my career, there have been situations that women older than me weren't as nice as they could have been. And so whether they felt threatened or competitive or uncomfortable with themselves or whatever the issue was, I feel like we can lead again with empathy and not really be threatened, realize our own strengths and be confident in our abilities, but also give confidence to the next generation. And I'm really passionate with my company. I typically try to have an intern at least once a year. I would like to have more of them. So just working with Marshall University and working with other institutions within our area, just to help cultivate that next generation. And as a leader of the Public Relations Society of America, East Central District, that's within a 6-state radius, and West Virginia is obviously part of that, just being able to be a driving force within the public relations field and work with the student chapters of the organization locally and then at a district level to help make a difference and to encourage collaboration and camaraderie. I'm really big, especially being a mom now, you think about the next generation. So you want to leave it better than where you found it. And then I feel like just building a network of strong, independent, very successful women, I think that would be a very good thing. And, having a son, just, teaching him that all people can be empowered and, about equality and things like that. We, as women, we kind of need to remind ourselves of that. And I think that just being able to, again, have the confidence and, not have that mentality of, everybody's out to get me or I'm not going to achieve certain things. All of the negative self-talk we have is just to, combat that and, serve as a mentor in some capacity for the next generation of women and men.
Yes. Very good answer. I agree with that. Well, Kaylin, it was extremely, I don't know even the word to use for it, but this was a really good conversation.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I'll have to do it more often.
So I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come and talk with us to celebrate the National Career Development Week. And until next time, thank you so much, and see you soon.